Hi everyone, it's Wendy from Wedded Wonderland here. I am with some of the most incredible suppliers from Victoria, and we are talking about Save Vic events in particular, along with the Save Our Weddings campaign Australia-wide. We know you have suffered the most, you've had the least amount of answers, roadmaps, idea in how to move forward with your businesses. And we have Lizzie here, who is a bride-to-be, and she's going to give us a little bit of insight in regards to what it's been like to plan a wedding during a pandemic. It's so great to hear and to see that Melbourne's numbers, Victoria's numbers are dropping daily, and everybody's feeling super confident to get back to business. And you're able, you're willing, and I guess, you know, the industry is excited to hear from your government. So we are doing this so we can get some answers for you guys. And I'm going to start with Bruce. Would you like to introduce yourself? Hi.
Well, nice to see you. And thank you so much for doing this, Wendy. I mean, it's such a dynamic difference where Victoria's at the moment. And yes, we've started this campaign called Save Vic Events. Our businesses run very much in the wedding sector. We've got 680 brides at the moment who are desperate for answers in all our different venues and in our sort of design portfolio. And it's just, it's the most tragic of situations. So yes, we're all looking for answers, and I thank you so much for opening this conversation today.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. And it's something that, you know, being Wedded Wonderland, we hear from the industry, and we also are hearing from so many couples who want to move forward with their lives, who want some sort of answers. And we're not asking for 500 PAX weddings tomorrow. We're saying, give us some sort of idea of what weddings will look like in 2021, in particular in Victoria, and to ensure that these couples can actually say, well, I'm going to postpone until February, and I feel confident doing that, right? That's what we're asking for.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is it's one of the most major investments that a young couple will make in their life, and added their family. So not having transparency about how and when they can enjoy what is just such a fundamental start to new life is really an emotional drain, and it's very difficult. Not only the financial aspects difficult, but the emotional pressure is terrible, onset by the economic problems that we've got happening as well. So there's a really big push. So we see this as a sort of a triangle effect. You know, it's the forces between government, the pressure on business, and the emotional personal effect. And it's just interesting, isn't it, in our sector, and we all love what we do. We're here to provide joy and beauty and all of those things. But the supply chain, and even just looking across the board at all of us today, the amount of sole traders and small businesses inside the wedding sector. But we employ a bloody huge amount of people and generate so much economic impact, from the eyelash and brow lady to the manicures, to Alin's beautiful gowns and the Style Co's incredible, installations at events. So it's a big snowball effect that's all of a sudden stopped, and it's not even an ice block.
Absolutely. So how do you see this industry opening up? What do you think this roadmap needs to look like?
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, the conversation I'm having with you is very similar to the conversations that I'm having with all of our couples. I wish I had a crystal ball, number one. Number two is, this is definitely a health pandemic, and there's no question on that. So we have to put everything in regards to whatever we look at, it might shift. So we have all had to have been flexible, and I think, as a community, everyone's done that. But there's a point where now we really need some answers, and the narrative in Victoria is definitely changing. We're getting under that 10 a day. So it's hard for the government to keep forgetting about the wedding industry. So it's the right time for brides to be putting pressure on, and grooms and brides. It's the right time to be putting that pressure on, because government needs to hear from real people. We're all having an economic impact, but these people are having a massive emotional impact. We have to allow government to start opening up, which, will happen. I think the hospitality sector, Wendy, has to go first. So once we start getting some great numbers with regards to what can happen outdoors, and that was really what Save Vic Events really was, picking off one small piece that government could understand, so that once we get the outdoor quotient, because outdoor entertaining is 25 times safer than indoor entertaining. Let's get a number for that. And we were pushing for that for Grand Final, Melbourne Cup, the Australian Open, cricket, etc. It sort of put a box around what outdoor numbers would look like. From there, it will be the hospitality sector getting us some indoor numbers. Once we've got those, then we can start looking, okay, is it 4 per square metre or 2 per square metre? You know, as Sarah would well know, you know, and we can design anything and we can make COVID chic very easily, but we need some goalposts to work around. So I think for those brides and grooms listening is the main thing we're all, you know, really putting pressure on is to try to get some clarity on those numbers. Once we get that, we can then move into masks and dance floors and all the other bits. But my biggest concern now is November and December. You know, it'll be highly unlikely that we'll be seeing anything of big numbers in that period. But what we want to do for our industry and for all the couples for January, February, March and April, we have to give them some assurity, because these are people who've moved their weddings 2 and 3 times. And it's too devastating. You know, we have to bring them joy.
And, you know, with an average of 22 suppliers working on any given event, the amount of variables in trying to move that from one to another, I mentioned a little earlier, just offline, we're running a survey to actually, you know, find out what is the economic impact of this. And on average, couples have lost, not by cancelling their wedding, by postponing over $10,000 on average. So this is something that is, you know, for some people's life savings, and with the average spend on a wedding being over $60,000, you've got to think all of these couples that are invested in having their wedding and being in limbo, and you know, what's next for them. They do want to have their wedding. We can facilitate it. And as you said, COVID chic, we're all for that. But what does it actually mean, and what does it look like? So
the limbo's hard, Wendy. I mean, what you guys have done, and I think, you know, your advocation of just getting the 20 people on the dance floor in New South Wales has really led the way nationally. And, you know, I just think that's such a wonderful thing, because it allows Victoria to slip in behind that. Because to have 120 people and 20 on the dance floor, it gives us a gateway to the next steps and stages. What government really needs to know from the industry sector is we're actually the best versed industry to provide a COVID safe environment. We know every guest's name. We're probably related to them before we even start. We know where they live, and we can put the principles in to provide a really organised COVID safe environment, far more than the public sector, public transport sector, or even going down to the mall to shop at the Safeway. So, you know, we've got to push together to make sure we can get some wins for our couples.
And this is one thing that we've been saying all along, you know, every other venue, and this was the fight that we were fighting in New South Wales, was you know, once the restaurants start opening up, you've got people who are dining who don't know who they're sitting next to. Yes, you're checking them in and there's hand sanitizer, but at a wedding, you can advise you know, anyone who's not feeling well, please don't attend prior. So you've got the guest list in check. Your venues, I mean, wedding venues are big. Completely. I used to work in venue. I was a planner. Flipped upside down. Every tablecloth, every piece of linen, cutlery, crockery. In terms of deep cleaning, I mean, it happens at every event. You know, so you're going into a restaurant and these tables are turning over 2 or 3 times a day. It's very different in the private event market. And so there are so many positive factors to the way that these events actually run, and the control components. Yeah. And I think, yeah.
The big thing though for me, you know, and, you know, our 30 years of our business has been, you know, providing beautiful experiences for people, and loads of them weddings, right? And I just sort of refuse for my clients to have them go into a situation where they're not actually going to have the ability to look back on that moment, which has cost a fortune for them, and not say, that was the best day of my life. So what we have to do is advocate to make sure that we get to a point where, if, you know, our beautiful mural hall, you know, for example, is 700 square meters. And now if I can do 60 people on one long table in there, we can create something very memorable and very beautiful. But if everyone's got a mask on like this, and, you know, we can't dance and those things, they're non-negotiables for so many brides, and we have to get that moved for them.
Well, this is the thing, and this is what we've been fighting for. Do not take the celebration out of weddings. The fundamental components, it's like saying, well, we've opened up gyms, but there's no equipment and you can't touch anything. But go to the gym and pay your membership and good luck. It's the exact same thing. So the fundamental components of a wedding must take place, which is why we said with the no dancing rule in New South Wales, it is too restrictive. People will not proceed with their weddings, and we're going to get another round of postponement. So this is what it's all about. It's not taking the celebration out, keeping some of those core fundamental, requirements, but also understanding that, yes, we don't want cases to increase. Yes, people want to practice, COVID safe practices, but you've got to start somewhere. And it's those baby steps that start opening up an industry from hospitality perspective, from people, again, being out and about, and then what weddings will actually look like. So I'm going to ask Lizzie, who is a bride-to-be, a question, and this is around how you're feeling and I guess what your plans were for 2020 and where you're sitting at the moment in terms of your wedding planning.
Sure. Thanks for having me as well, Wendy. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, I have to say. I'm actually also an event designer, so being a bride in 2020 and an event designer in Melbourne, bit of a double whammy there with my professional life and my personal life. And our company, we were sadly all stood down in March, and sort of expecting that to be about a 4 to 6 month kind of period. And we, my fiance and I were due to be married in November this year, so in a bit less than 2 months. When we were stood down in March, I was like, oh, November, that's ages away. We'll be fine. Don't stress about it. It's all good. Like the people in, the winter brides, they should be a little bit worried, but we'll be okay. Then time kept ticking, and sort of around mid-year, we started to realize, okay, it's not going to happen. It's not even a conversation. We're not hearing anything about weddings. It's just basically a blackout rule that it's just not happening. And so we made the tricky decision to postpone to March 2021. From that moment on, so sort of mid-year 2020 until about now, so sort of the last 3 months, we made a conscious effort, my fiance and I, anytime we thought about our wedding or wanted to talk about it, we would say to each other, no, let's just not talk about it. We can't talk about it. We can't get excited. Like we were actively forcing ourselves not to get excited because there was just that thought that, there's a huge chance that this may not happen, or it may happen, but in a totally different way than we wanted it to. And when you're spending so much time, so much energy, so much money on this one day, it becomes, everyone knows it's not just about that one day. It's the build up, it's the events beforehand, it's the recovery lunch afterwards, it's the family time that you get to spend with people. It's all that stuff that basically I was having to sort of accept that may or may not happen, and it was probably a bigger chance that it wouldn't happen. So recently, sort of in the last couple of weeks, we decided to postpone again. So we've now had 3 wedding dates. We're now set to be married in November 2021, so a year after our first date. And I guess I come from I'm 28. It's not like I wasn't planning on getting pregnant straight away after our wedding. We're not, traditional people. We live together. It's not like wedding life is going to change for us majorly after we get married. But it's hit me in a way that I was not expecting. Like the tiredness and the sadness that comes along with it is just draining. And I think I would be fine with if the government was to say, basically, if you're getting married before June 2021, you need to be in a position where that probably won't be the wedding that you're thinking of unless it's, under 50 people, or you're okay to wear masks, or you're okay to not dance. It's just this idea that it's like, well, I'm crossing my fingers, but really no one knows. And I'm in so many Facebook brides affected by COVID-19 groups. And I think the thing that comes up most is just this idea that we don't care if we have something negative that is told to us, but as long as it's a rule and it's there and it's set in stone, and I understand that that can be very tricky when obviously we're living through a pandemic and the goalposts are changing and all of that, we're sort of sympathetic to that. But if there was just going to be some sort of announcement where it was like, pre this date, you're probably going to have to wear masks, you may not be able to dance, and that's something that you guys need to take into account, and post this date, you've got a much better chance of having the day that you dreamed of. That would just provide some nights where I could happily go to sleep and not try and think about what my life is going to be like in the next year. So I think it's just, as everyone, I'm sure, not even in weddings, but just in general throughout Melbourne, it's just the uncertainty that is really draining and can only go on for so long before people start to really crack it. I'm almost there.
Yeah, and well, uncertainty equals anxiety. That's what I believe. And I think, you know, if the government, we're not asking for a crystal ball here, tell us when you're going to review things.
Absolutely.
Like, start with that. We review weddings and private events, or we're reviewing the hospitality industry every fortnight. And so you will hear an update from us every fortnight based on the COVID numbers that are currently in play in terms of new cases and existing cases. That is a starting point, right? Like,
absolutely. And I think that's all I know. I would find so much comfort in that it was just like, we've got you, we're thinking of you, you're not forgotten. You're just, it's not the number one priority right now. And I can understand that there are other things that come first, but just a leader saying that you're not forgotten would just make me feel so much more at ease.
And I want to speak to the Victorian brides here and say, really what has made a huge difference in New South Wales is having brides speak up and couples speak up and talk about the emotional toll that has taken place. And thank you so much, Lizzie, for sharing your story and your journey, which I'm sure so many people can relate to. It really needs, there's an industry that is suffering economically, and a lot of people are suffering mentally and emotionally, because the brides come to these guys for the answers. And we, as an industry, are used to planning and having the answers. And when you don't have anything to say and you don't know what's going on, there's only so long that you can hold the fort as well. And so the mental toll that it's taking from a supplier side, so you're on both sides, and so is Alin, actually, having to, you know, give comfort when you're not hearing, it's like crickets. So it's very, very challenging. And really what we're fighting for, again, is not the entire industry to open up tomorrow. It's about giving some sort of clarity and assurance as to what will be reviewed, just like they did in Western Australia. They provided a roadmap. This is what stage 4, 3, 2 and 1 look like. Not stage 4 and then potentially stage 3 and then we'll see what happens. This is the plan based on how we're tracking from a case perspective. So to go over to Alin Le'Kal, who's a fabulous designer and a friend of mine. Alin, you're on both sides as well. You are a designer that actually produces gowns for brides Australia-wide, and you are getting married too. And I want to talk about the impacts of being Melbourne-based, but also having, you know, an Australia-wide and even an international to some extent client, and what it's been like servicing these guys. What have you been doing, and how is everyone feeling from your perspective?
Well, thank you for having me, by the way. Look, it's been quite challenging, I'd say, for mostly our Australian clients. For the international brides, we go through a certain process, you know, for measurements and fittings. But with Australia, all of our brides visit us in Melbourne, and there are no flights to Melbourne at the moment. Well, there are flights, but quite minimal, but no one even wants to risk visiting Melbourne at the moment. So it's just been a struggle in the sense that, you know, trying to find people in industry, which they've been so helpful. You know, we had a Sydney bride that got married on Sunday, and we were working with a designer in Sydney, and she was doing the fittings for us, and the dress went back and forth from Sydney to Melbourne about 2 times, I think. And the bride got her dress in the end, which is fantastic. But it's just been a struggle in the sense that us as a brand can't see our client wear the dress. The client feels sometimes frustrated, especially for the interstate brides, because we're almost they can't get access to us, you know.
And how do you feel that has impacted, I guess, the way that you're doing business? How much business, like, let's be realistic, has been lost, and do you think will be lost if you actually don't hear something from your government?
Look, we've lost so much already. And it's not really lost. We've just postponed the clients are postponing. So we're looking at a year of 2021, which is normally, say we service about 150 brides. We're looking at 300 brides now, because this year has just moved on to next year.
Yeah.
So it's just, the pressure is quite high for us. Everyone's got a team that they can work with, and but our team is non-existent at the moment. So we need to have our team back next year, but not only that, possibly even hire more staff, because we're double the work.
Yeah. And how do you feel, I mean, as a service provider in this market, not having any kind of subsidy, not having any kind of additional, I guess, there are so many industries that have been impacted by COVID, but our market doesn't seem to have answers in Victoria, and we don't know when that will happen. So, how long is that piece of string? How long can you hold on before you go, give me something here, give me an answer? This is one thing I was actually discussing with an international friend. We are very unique in the sense that people want to proceed with their wedding. They want to, the postponement factor is there. They're wanting to go ahead. We're a non-cyclical industry. They will proceed with their wedding as soon as they're allowed. So how long are you going to hold on before you start kicking and streaming, or you're already there yet?
We're at a stage now, like, I'm going to speak on behalf of my clients, and this is what I've been hearing, and I think Bruce would probably agree with this. We're at a stage now where the brides are they're done. Yeah. They're just done. And the problem is, which you touched about just earlier, what we need from the government is just some recognition, I guess. Just some recognition. I feel like our industry is the forgotten industry. Hospitality, it hasn't been addressed 100%, but they have touched on that. But the wedding industry hasn't been touched on at all. It affects so many people, so many jobs, so many couples that have emotional attachments to their dates, which now those dates, they don't even know what date they have. Yeah. Some don't even have dates.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully we're going to have multiple anniversary celebrations, right, Bruce? Is this the silver lining? I'm trying to find one.
I was looking at all the christenings that might be coming.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'm going to go over to Sarah.
Lynn is right. Look, people, it's like the employees have got employee fatigue, and couples have got fatigue of having to redo it again. I mean, joy is something about expectation and, seeing milestones, as Lizzie said before. It's actually, we've always said at the big group, it's not about the day. It is the journey. It's the 12 months that Sarah, Alin, Lizzie, myself spend with those people. We have more fun and laugh and have more joy with our clients in the lead up. The actual wedding, oh my God, that bit, thing. So to not provide that part of the service is very disheartening, because that's about the experience. So we've got to get that back for them. And I feel confident we will. I just don't know when.
Yeah. So the anticipation is really what we're looking for. Yeah. And I think, Sarah, I wanted to ask you this question. So we have Sarah here from the Style Co. The amount of suppliers that you work with, and I guess being able to facilitate the kind of weddings that you do, it's not just you guys coming in as stylists. As I said, there's an average of 22 suppliers that work on any given wedding. How is it that you're working with all these service providers, the contractors, the casuals, the guys who bump in and bump out and do the lighting and the sound and stage? What are they all doing? What are they doing right now?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Firstly, hello to everybody, and thank you so much. I just love that we're even having this forum. I think it represents who we are as industry providers. We love what we do, and we really, really support each other. So it's very, very exciting to be chatting to you all. Everyone's struggling, like, without a doubt. We've spoken about the impacts on the couples, and it's so hard to see them want to celebrate and they can't. And the stresses that Lizzie mentioned, they're so true. Like, there's they're just stuck and they have no plans forward. On the other side, in terms of the suppliers, we're just all treading water. We really are just waiting to hear what the plan is. And for lots of businesses in this industry, they're small businesses, you know, they're mums and dads, they're regular people, and businesses without any revenue coming in, you know, they can sustain themselves for a little while. And, you know, any grants that we get, we're so grateful. But there's going to come a point where, you know, people can't hold on for that much longer. And it breaks my heart to know that a lot of small suppliers probably won't come out of this with a business at all. And that's really, really tragic.
I mean, with over 85% of the wedding market being privately owned, over 50% being that sole trader, I just, you know, wonder what we can do collectively as an industry, what the couples can do to I guess, safeguard and protect something that has been created by so many incredible creatives from around the country, and in particular Victoria. I mean, you guys are really, you know, huge trendsetters in terms of weddings and the way that people play out their weddings as well. So what do you feel like, would you need to hear tomorrow to say, I can open my business again and I can keep going and we're going to be okay with, you know, 2021 is a positive year for us and this is what we can do, I guess, to start planning for all these weddings?
I think initially the first thing I really want to kind of emphasize to our couples and to all the couples out there is please just postpone, don't cancel. You know, the ramifications of cancelling are just mind-blowing, and they can really impact businesses beyond 6 months. You know, the reality is that it may take this industry 2 to 3 years to recover from this. So for the couples that are out there, please considering postponing. You know, I know that there are a lot of industry friends that I've had that they've, you know, couples have reached out and said, can we have our deposit back? Can we cancel this? Can we cancel that? And I urge our couples, whilst absolutely appreciating that they're just in limbo and they don't know where things are at and where the funds are and all those sorts of things, I just ask, please postpone, don't cancel, because we will come out of this and we will be having the biggest parties with all of you. So if anything, I think that's the first place to start. And then secondly, the government needs to be really clear about when and how we can start to celebrate. And like Bruce mentioned, we will pivot. We will do whatever we need to do to adapt to whatever policies there are and processes that there need to be. I mean, we're in events. We're all about making sure that, you know, everything appears to be smooth sailing on the surface while things are a bit frantic underneath. We can do that. We can take that on. So we just need an understanding of when events are likely to happen. You know, we can change our model to make them outdoor friendly, whatever we need to do. We just need an understanding of that roadmap and when it is likely that events can start to happen. And the reality is we work with our couples 9 to 12 months before. So getting an understanding now helps us to allow for our businesses to be viable for next year. You know, like Bruce mentioned, I think the reality is there probably won't be any events this year. No kind of surprises there. But what about Jan, Feb, March and onwards? So give us some guide to what will be announced and make it specific to private events. Hospitality, retail, it's very, very different. You know, a cafe can open and they'll get, you know, cash in their registers that same day. For our businesses, you know, cash flow is paused, and it may be paused for several months. So it's really, really reaching out to our government and saying, please recognise what we do. We're bigger than just weddings. We're private events, we're christenings, we're bar mitzvahs, we're corporate launches. We employ so many people, and we just need an understanding of that we're being recognised, we're being heard, and we're being considered.
One of the big things, Wendy, sorry, just to jump in there to follow on what Sarah's saying, from a government perspective, you know, the recognition piece, Sarah, is absolutely vital. But it's also to understand that the JobKeeper piece has been great, and it, you know, it's kept us all being able to keep a little bit of a team. But it has no value to our businesses and therefore no value to our clients unless it is extended, one, at the same rate, which I think is an absolute horror that it hasn't been for the industry, and two, extended beyond March, because every other business in this country has had the opportunity to trade themselves out via that incentive. But the events industry, and in Victoria, has had no support whatsoever because we won't get that lag time. And it is one of the biggest things we need government to help all sole traders and these small businesses.
Absolutely. I mean, just hearing the fact that, and this is a huge talking point from a beauty perspective, you know, cafes, restaurants, retail, you're open tomorrow. Okay, we'll put, you know, turn the open sign on, open the door and allow customers to come in. In the wedding space, it's going to take the industry a few months to realign staff, contractors, suppliers, all of these kinds of things to actually say, yes, we can facilitate that wedding that's going to take place, you know, in 6 months' time, because we've got our team back together and we can rock and roll with this. So it's definitely a long shelf life industry, and it is something that does need future proofing. And really, it comes down to somebody giving us an answer. So the Save Our VIC Events, so Save VIC Events is the hashtag, and there is a petition running. There's about 5,000 people that have signed this petition. We need a whole lot more, and we need the brides, the couples in particular, sharing this graphic. So we will share this across our social and our digital channels, the link, and you need to make this go viral. Your guest list, you need to send this link to everybody that is attending your wedding, because they are all, and this is the other thing with weddings, it's not just the couple. What about the 100, 150 guests that need to go get their hair, their makeup done, their outfit, their shoes, the retail, the beauty sector? There are so many other components to this. So your guest list is going to be signing something, and it's a petition right now. We also have the Save Our Weddings petition, which has, I think, over 6,000 signatures on it. This is what drove, guys, this is specifically what drove the 20 packs easing of restriction in New South Wales to allow the bridal party to dance. So these petitions work. And as much as, I mean, you know, Wedded Wonderland is a marketplace, but none of us are politicians. We never dreamed we would be in this position, but we are learning that the more noise you make, the more impact you have. And we want it to be positive noise. We want our couples to know that we are here for you. We will fight for you, and we will ensure that we will do everything that we can to open up this industry, and so your voices are heard. And for the industry in Victoria, which is my second home, it's actually where I first migrated to when I came to Australia. Hi, Altona. I just want to say, you and hearing from the couples in Victoria, it's enough. You guys have been through enough. It is time now that, you know, really suppliers and the consumer, we need to take it into our own hands, and we need to say, we deserve some answers, and we're all going to do this together. So we need the brides on our side, the couples on our side, the grooms as well, the aunties, the uncles. The formal industry was open up here in 2 weeks because of the mums that were, you know, going off the rails about their kids not being able to do the HSC properly and not having a formal. And within 2 weeks, they were able to lift the restrictions and have a dance floor. So these things work, and we just need to get in there collectively and make sure that your voices are being heard. And it has been very difficult to drive a strong campaign in Victoria when cases have been high. You know, and I spoke to Bruce about this. It's very challenging when you've got 700 cases outside and you're thinking, save our weddings, right? It was counterintuitive. Right now, your case numbers have dropped significantly. The confidence is there. People want to be able to celebrate in some capacity. Just tell us how. So there is a very strong petition. There's a very strong case for you guys. We need to have everyone's voices heard, and we will back it as Wedded Wonderland. Media players, our competitors, everyone out there is saying, what can we do? We're all in this together, and that's one thing that is for sure that's come out of COVID-19, and hopefully we're out of it somewhat, that we're in this together and we're going to fight. We're going to fight to party.
Absolutely.
Right?
Thank you, Wendy.
Final words, Bruce?
You're amazing.
I love it. Might tie myself to a tree.
Look, I'm there. I was saying to Alin, if I wasn't pregnant, I'd find a way to get down to Victoria and be, I don't know, advocating in some form or some way for you.
I think you being pregnant would even help us more.
I'll bring all of my kids along. It's just more numbers. And look, the industry here in New South Wales and other states, we are all behind you. We all work together. We have so much respect for the big group, for Alin Le'Kal, of course, and the Style Co. You guys are, and I've worked with you personally and professionally, amazing people. Please keep advocating for your industry, and we will do our bit too. And thank you, Lizzie, for joining us and sharing your story. Let's do this, team.
Thanks,
Thank
Wendy.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.